The invisible fleet, the vast emptiness of space around Proxima Centauri seemed peaceful that morning, but Admiral Sarah Chen knew better. Standing on the bridge of the UES Defiance, she watched the tactical display with the calm intensity of someone who had spent 30 years preparing for this exact moment. The red dots representing the incoming HFY armada stretched across her screen like a spreading infection. "Ma'am, long-range sensors confirm the enemy fleet composition," reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. 247 ships, 12 dreadnoughts, 38 heavy cruisers, and the rest are destroyers and fighter squadrons. Chen nodded without taking her eyes off the display. The HFY Empire had sent enough firepower to crack planets in half. Their massive vessels, each 1 kilometers long and bristling with energy weapons, represented the pinnacle of galactic military technology. For any other species, this would have been a death sentence. But humans weren't any other species. "Signal." "The fleet," Chen ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "Activate silent protocol. Full implementation." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Chen had drilled them on this moment countless times, but she knew the weight of what they were about to attempt. The silent protocol wasn't just another weapon or defensive system. It was humanity's answer to a galaxy that had underestimated them for too long. Dr. Marcus Webb, the brilliant physicist who had made it all possible, stood quietly in the corner of the bridge. His weathered face showed no emotion, but Chen caught the slight tremor in his hands. This was his life's work, about to be tested against the most advanced military force in known space. Dr. Chen said softly, "Are you ready?" Webb straightened his shoulders and nodded. "The quantum shadow generators are online across all ships. The alien sensors work by detecting electromagnetic signatures, gravitational distortions, and quantum fluctuations. Our technology creates a perfect null field around each vessel. To their instruments, we simply don't exist." The transformation began silently. Across the human fleet, 112 ships engaged systems that the galaxy's greatest minds had deemed impossible. The quantum shadow generators hummed to life, wrapping each vessel in a cocoon of engineered nothingness. It wasn't just stealth technology, it was erasure from reality itself. Chen watched as her own ships vanished from the tactical display, one by one. The feeling was unsettling, even for someone who knew it was coming. Her fleet had become ghosts, invisible to every known method of detection. HFY fleet entering the outer system, announced the communications officer. "They're maintaining standard formation. No indication they've detected our presence." Through the viewport, Chen could see the first signs of the alien armada. Distant points of light that grew steadily brighter as massive ships decelerated from faster than light. Travel. The HFY vessels were beautiful in their own way, sleek and organic looking, like living creatures bred for war. Commander Zekthal stood in the command center of the flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 arms working the control interfaces with fluid precision. The HFY were an ancient race, their empire spanning dozens of star systems. They had conquered species that had thought themselves unconquerable, and today they would add humanity to that list. "All ships report ready for planetary bombardment," announced his second-in-command. "The human colonies show no signs of defensive preparations. Their primitive technology cannot threaten our vessels." Zekthal's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The humans had been a minor curiosity when they first ventured into space. A young species with crude ships and simple weapons. The Galactic Council had barely acknowledged their existence. Now, after claiming 3 star systems and establishing colonies without permission, they needed to be taught their place. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target the orbital stations first, then the population centers. Make it quick but thorough. The galaxy must understand what happens to those who challenge the Kethva Empire. The alien fleet moved with deadly precision. Energy weapons charged with the power to melt continents. Missile bays opened to reveal warheads that could crack moons. The Kethva had perfected the art of planetary destruction over centuries of conquest. But as they approached the inner system, something felt wrong. "Sir," called the sensor operator, his voice uncertain. "I'm detecting some unusual readings. Gravitational anomalies near the 4th planet." Zekthal, SI, stalks swiveled toward the display. "Explain." "It's difficult to describe, sir. The sensors show ... nothing. But the nothing is moving." Before Zekthal could respond, the first human ship revealed itself. The UES Phantom materialized directly above the Kethva fleet, its weapons already locked on target. Captain Alina Vasquez had spent 3 years training for this moment, learning to pilot her ship while completely cut off from visual and sensor references. "This is Captain Vasquez to all human vessels," she broadcast on the encrypted channel. "The party has begun. Time to show our guests what real hospitality looks like." The Phantom's particle beam lanced out, striking the nearest Kethva destroyer before it could even register the threat. The alien ship's shields flared and died, its hull splitting open like overripe fruit. Atmosphere vented into space, carrying debris and crew members into the void. Zekthal's mandibles spread wide in shock. Where did that ship come from? How? Did it get past our sensors? His crew scrambled to respond, but the answers weren't coming. Their most advanced detection systems showed empty space where the human ship clearly existed. It was as if the vessel existed in a different dimension, able to strike at will while remaining completely invisible. "All ships, defensive formation," Zekthal barked. "Find those humans and destroy them." But the Kethva fleet's confusion was just beginning. Captain Vasquez had fired the opening shot, but she was only one of dozens of human ships now moving into position. The silent protocol allowed them to coordinate their attacks with perfect precision while remaining completely undetectable. The UES Wraith appeared directly beneath a Kethva cruiser, its torpedo tubes already loaded with quantum disruption warheads. Commander Sarah Mitchell had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment, piloting her ship into the heart of the enemy formation. "For Earth," she whispered, and fired. The torpedoes struck the cruiser's engineering section with devastating effect. The quantum disruption field spread through the ship's systems, turning its own energy weapons against its hull. The massive vessel tore itself apart from the inside, its death throes lighting up the darkness of space across the Kethva fleet. Panic began to spread. Ships that had dominated battlefields for generations found themselves helpless against an enemy they couldn't see. Their sensors showed nothing but empty space, even as their vessels exploded around them. "Sir, we've lost 6 ships in the last 2 minutes, reported the tactical officer, his voice shaking. "The humans are picking us off one by one, but we can't target them." Zekthal's confidence cracked like ice in a storm. He had faced many enemies in his career, but never one that could simply vanish from existence. "Activate emergency protocols. All ships, fire at random coordinates. If we can't see them, we'll fill space with enough energy to hit them anyway." It was a desperate strategy, but desperation was all he had left. The Kethva fleet began firing wildly, their weapons painting the void with deadly light. Energy beams crisscrossed the space between ships, creating a web of destruction that should have been impossible to navigate. But the human ships moved through the chaos like dancers in a deadly ballet. The silent protocol didn't just hide them. From sensors, it allowed them to exist in the spaces between spaces, where alien weapons couldn't reach them. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Her fleet was performing exactly as designed, striking hard and fast, while remaining completely invisible. But she knew this was just the beginning. The Kethver would adapt, and humanity needed to be ready for their response. "Signal, Captain Vasquez," she ordered. "Phase 2 begins now. It's time to show them what human ingenuity really means." The Phantom received the signal and began its next maneuver. Vasquez guided her ship through the alien formation, using the confusion to get close to the Kethver flagship. The Eternal Dominion was a massive vessel, its hull thick with armor and bristling with weapons. But it had one weakness that the humans had identified during years of preparation. "Computer, lock on to the command ship's quantum resonance frequency," Vasquez commanded. "Prepare the disruptor charge." The disruptor charge was humanity's secret weapon, a device that could turn the aliens' own technology against them. It worked by matching the quantum frequency of Kethver's systems and then inverting it, creating a cascade failure that would spread throughout the ship. Vasquez brought her ship alongside the flagship's hull, so close that she could see the alien crew through the transparent sections. They were running frantically between control stations, their forearms working desperately to coordinate their fleet's response. "This is for every human colony you've threatened," she said, and triggered the charge. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Eternal Dominion's lights flickered, then died completely. Its weapons powered down, its shields collapsed, and its engines went silent. The mighty flagship became a lifeless hulk drifting through space. But Zekthal wasn't finished. As emergency power restored basic systems, he made a decision that would haunt him forever. If he couldn't fight an enemy he couldn't see, he would force them to reveal themselves. "Target the human colonies," he ordered. "If they won't face us directly, we'll make them watch their worlds burn." The remaining Kethver ships turned toward the inhabited planets, their weapons charging for planetary bombardment. It was a war crime by any galactic standard. But Zekthal had moved beyond caring about such things. Admiral Chen saw the movement on her tactical display and felt her blood turn to ice. The aliens were targeting civilians, trying to force the human fleet into a conventional battle when numbers would matter more than stealth. "All ships, emergency intercept," she commanded. "Protect the colonies at all costs." The human fleet moved to block the alien attack. But revealing themselves would mean abandoning the advantage that the silent protocol provided. It was exactly what Zekthor was counting on. As the first part of this deadly game reached its climax, both sides prepared for a confrontation that would determine the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy. The Kethver had numbers and firepower, but the humans had something far more dangerous: the element of surprise and the will to use it. The hunter becomes the hunted. The moment of truth had arrived. Admiral Chen faced a choice that would define humanity's future: maintain the silent protocol and watch innocent civilians die, or reveal her fleet to save the colonies and lose their tactical advantage forever. But Sarah Chen hadn't survived 30 years of military service by accepting impossible choices. She had a third option, one that would require perfect timing and complete faith in her crew's abilities. "Dr. Webb," she called to the physicist. Can the quantum shadow generators be modified for offensive use? Webb's eyes lit up with understanding. Theoretically, yes. If we reverse the polarity and focus the field, we could create a localized reality distortion around enemy ships. They wouldn't just be invisible to sensors, they'd be cut off from normal space entirely. How long do you need? Give me 10 minutes. Chen turned to her communications officer. Send a message to all ships. We're going to try something that's never been attempted before. If anyone wants to transfer to a safer vessel, now's the time. The response was immediate and unanimous. Not a single crew member requested transfer. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks, and they weren't about to abandon their posts when humanity needed them most. Meanwhile, the Kethva fleet continued its deadly approach toward the human colonies. Zekthal had regrouped his remaining ships into a tight formation. Their combined firepower focused on the task of planetary annihilation. If he couldn't defeat the human fleet, he would at least complete his mission of demonstrating Kethva power. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the humans, reported the communications officer. Zekthal's mandibles clicked with interest. Put it through. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main display, her expression calm despite the desperate situation. Commander Zekthal, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Force. I'm giving you one chance to withdraw your forces and leave this system. The alien commander's laughter was a harsh, chittering sound. You dare to make demands while hiding like cowards. Show yourselves and face us in honorable combat, or watch your worlds burn. Honor? Chun's voice carried decades of hard-earned authority. There's nothing honorable about targeting civilians. You want to see what human courage looks like. You're about to get a demonstration. The transmission ended, leaving Zekthal staring at empty space. For a moment, he wondered if he had underestimated these humans. Then he dismissed the thought. No species in the galaxy could match Kethva, military might in direct confrontation. Dr. Webb worked frantically in the Defiance's engineering section, his hands flying over control interfaces as he modified the quantum shadow generators. The theory was sound, but they had never tested it on this scale. One mistake could tear holes in reality itself. Admiral, he called over the comm system. I'm ready, but I need to warn you about the risks. This modification could destabilize local space-time. We might not be able to control what happens next. The response was immediate. Doctor, sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the most desperate moments. Make it happen. The human fleet moved into position around the Kethva formation, their ships still invisible to alien sensors. But instead of attacking directly, they began to coordinate their quantum shadow fields, linking them together in a massive web of distorted space. Captain Vasquez piloted the Phantom through the alien formation, her ship's generator adding its power to the growing field. This is either going to be the most brilliant tactical maneuver in history or the most spectacular failure, she muttered to her crew. The effect began slowly. Individual Kethva ships started experiencing system malfunctions as reality became unstable around them. Their weapons fired at targets that didn't exist, their sensors showed readings that made no sense, and their navigation systems lost all reference points. Sir, something's happening to the fleet, reported the sensor operator aboard the Eternal Dominion. Ships are reporting widespread system failures, but I can't identify the cause. Zekthal studied the tactical display with growing alarm. His perfectly organized formation was falling apart as ships drifted out of position, their crews struggling with equipment that no longer obeyed physical laws. Asterisk. Then the first ship simply vanished. The HFY destroyer blade of conquest was there. One moment, fully functional and combat-ready. The next moment, it existed only as a gap in space where something should have been. The ship hadn't exploded or been destroyed. It had simply ceased to exist in any meaningful way. What happened to the blade of conquest? Zekthal demanded. Sir, I don't know, came the shaken reply. It's not destroyed. It's just ... not there anymore. More ships began to disappear as the human quantum shadow field reached full power. The HFY vessels were being pulled into a dimension where their technology couldn't function, where their weapons were useless, and where their very existence became questionable. Admiral Chen watched the effect with a mixture of awe and horror. They had created something unprecedented, a weapon that didn't destroy enemies but erased them from reality. It was both the ultimate defensive tool and the most terrifying offensive capability imaginable. Admiral Dr. Webb's voice crackled over the com. The field is becoming unstable. We need to shut it down before it spreads beyond our control. But Chen hesitated. Half the HFY fleet was already gone, phased out of normal space by the quantum distortion. The remaining ships were crippled and helpless, their crews struggling with systems that no longer made sense. It was then that Commander Zekthal made his final desperate gambit. With his fleet dissolving around him, he activated the Eternal, Dominion's self-destruct sequence, not to destroy his own ship, but to create a massive explosion that would disrupt the human quantum field. If I cannot defeat you honorably, he broadcast on all frequencies, then I will drag you into oblivion with me. The flagship's core began to overload, building toward a detonation that would tear a hole in space-time itself. The explosion would likely destroy everything in the system, including the human colonies they were trying to protect. All ships, emergency withdrawal, Chen ordered. Abort the quantum field and get clear. But it was too late. The Eternal Dominion's core reached critical mass, and the explosion that followed wasn't just nuclear. It was a rupture in the fabric of reality itself. The quantum shadow field, already unstable, began to collapse in ways that physics couldn't explain. Captain Vasquez found herself at the center of the collapsing field, her ship's instruments showing readings that were literally impossible. Computer, what's our status? Unable to determine, came the electronic reply. Current location exists in violation of known physical laws. As the field collapsed, something unexpected happened. Instead of creating chaos, the quantum distortion began to stabilize in a new configuration. The human ships found themselves existing in a state of partial phase shift, able to move between normal space and the quantum shadow at will. Dr. Webb stared at his instruments in amazement. Admiral, we've stumbled onto something incredible. The explosion has created a stable quantum matrix. Our ships can now exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just won a battle, they had unlocked a new form of existence. The silent protocol had evolved into something far beyond its original design. The remaining HFY ships, those that hadn't been phased out of existence, found themselves facing an enemy that could literally exist in multiple realities at once. Their weapons couldn't hit targets that weren't entirely in normal space, and their sensors couldn't track ships that existed partially in quantum dimensions. Zekthal's desperate gambit had backfired spectacularly. Instead of destroying the human fleet, he had given them capabilities that no other species in the galaxy possessed. This is Admiral Chen to all remaining HFY vessels, she broadcast. Your commander's actions have ended this battle. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law. One by one, the surviving alien ships powered down their weapons and shields. Their crews had witnessed something beyond their understanding, and they knew continued resistance was futile. As the human fleet regrouped in normal space, Chen reflected on what they had accomplished. They had faced impossible odds and not just survived, but discovered new possibilities for human existence. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity. Again, Dr. Webb joined her on the bridge, his face showing the exhaustion of someone who had just rewritten the laws of physics. What do we do now, Admiral? Chen looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity's future among them had just changed. Forever. Now we learn to live in multiple dimensions, Doctor, and we make sure that no one ever threatens human colonies again. The battle was over, but humanity's journey into the quantum realm had just begun. The silent protocol had given them victory, but the quantum evolution would give them something far more valuable: the ability to exist beyond the limitations that had once defined them. In the years that followed, the galaxy would learn that underestimating human ingenuity was not just a mistake. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of what humanity could become when faced with extinction. They had not just won a battle, they had transcended the very nature of existence itself. And in the depths of space, where the quantum shadows danced between dimensions, humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning.